Hello everyone, come on in for my book club number 39. Hey guys, come on in. We're talking about a radical awakening. Let's do this. So, the radical part of our radical awakening is to really understand the causes and effects that bring us to a particular place. And the real healing occurs in our life when we're able to take brutal accountability for the causes and effects that brought us to a particular place. When we don't look in the mirror and we get into victim consciousness and bypass the very important work of understanding what the causes and effects were, then we are only faking our spiritual advancement. So most people cannot do this, right? Because it's too difficult. It's too difficult to be radically honest, to be powerfully transparent. It's really hard. Because the ego, the false self that was created to preserve our sense of worth, the fake sense of worth from the fake persona, is too rigid. So it's really hard for us to break down the false ego. So many of us think we are breaking down the false ego, but we're actually more in ego. So you see this a lot with people who have a lot of narcissism, a lot of entitlement, a lot of privilege. They simply don't understand. So you see this a lot in white supremacy, where the person of privilege is absolutely disconnected from the awareness of their privilege and how those who are quote unquote victims of a racist system feel. So the white supremacist says things like, oh, just get over it, oh, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and how can you be so angry, and I shouldn't be blamed for that, and you need to do that. And they point fingers on how the victim needs to feel. And because victim bashing is so common, and because we're so ashamed to be victims, we cower, or the person who's the victim of slavery or racism or the patriarchy cowers and blames themselves. Women do this so often. But I'm talking about women being perpetrators to themselves and to others. Not just the men, the human, the unconscious human. So I use the example of white supremacy just to give an example of how the white supremacist system is unable to look within to truly conduct reparation. So they blame the victim. The victim needs to forgive. The victim needs to let go. The victim, right? So in this book, I speak to women. Women are, in our own ways, much subjugated by the toxic masculine patriarchy. But I tell women, don't blame yourself. Don't blame the other either. Look at your own co-creation of your own causes and effects and enter a state of brutal honesty as to how you participated in your causes and effects. Now, if you're speaking to somebody who's pathological, if you're speaking to a narcissist who is pathologically narcissist, don't expect them to do the work. Don't expect them to understand what this brutal honesty and brutal accountability is all about. So if you right now are expecting the partner in your life or the friend in your life or the ex in your life to take brutal accountability for what they have caused in your life, don't do it. Because you will stay mired in their pathology. Some people are severely pathological And their life will mirror that. You don't have to worry. Your greatest power comes in looking at your own causes and effects, but honestly and truly moving out of it. Not because you're being asked by culture to get over it, but because you want to get over it. Because tethering yourself to pathology is never going to be beneficial. So I encourage women here, don't wait for men. I encourage people of color, don't wait for the white supremacy to change. We have to do it ourselves. The oppressors never will change. People in the privilege will never change. And your pathological ex or your pathological friend or your pathological colleague will never change. Why would they change? They're pathological. So you need to recognize the pathology of the system that you're dealing with. The system could be a child, the system could be a parent, the system could be an ex. What system are you dealing with? What level of consciousness do they have? Can they take brutal accountability for their causes and effects? No. Trust me, no. So you don't wait for them. You wait for your own rising and you release yourself from that pathology. So for women, it is releasing themselves from toxic masculinity. For people of color and black people in particular, it is releasing yourself from white supremacist attitudes and understanding the system is inherently not in their favor. For the earth, if the earth could speak, is to understand that humankind is very unkind. It's human cruelty to the earth. And the earth is just defenseless, right? So those who propose power and support for the earth will understand that we are working in a capitalist system that scourges on the earth. So we have to understand the system you're working with, the level of consciousness around the person or the system. And if you are a person who is awakening, your greatest awakening and power comes from understanding the pathology you're dealing with. Where is the other on their level of consciousness? And you need to know it. They don't need to know it. The one who is pathological can never know it. They're really ill. They're really delusional. And the harm they do is evil from delusion. You cannot change evil pathology. You can only recognize it and move away from it. So your cause and effects in your life need to take into account the other's pathology, the other's level of consciousness, and discern where are they at. And then create your own narrative, which involves either moving toward or moving away from that person, depending on their level of pathology. Elizabeth, it's your birthday present. The book is your birthday present. Happy birthday. So, part of our awakening is to have brutal honesty about our own causes and effects. And when you have brutal honesty about your own causes and effects, you have brutal honesty in others. You see it in others. You understand where others are on their level of consciousness. And the sad thing is that as you awaken, you see pathology everywhere. And it can be really scary. But wisdom doesn't take you to fear. Wisdom takes you to recognition, to awareness, and action based on this awareness. So when you see pathology in another, then you make a choice. How do you want to divorce that pathology in your life? Are you going to play your old patterns and engage with pathology? Or are you going to understand that you don't play with pathology because pathology is really tragic, and you allow the other person to be pathological and to deal with the causes and effects of their own life? Let me reassure you as a therapist, I have never seen anyone's pathology go unacknowledged by the universe. By the universe, I mean by their children, by their own health, by their own culture, by their own society. So don't worry. Because sometimes when someone does us wrong, we're like, oh my goodness, the whole world needs to know. Don't worry. The whole world does know. And the whole world will know. You don't have to worry. You have to focus on your own participation in pathology or lack of pathology. And as you get clearer about your own patterns, and as you enter wholeness, you divorce from pathology. You have no interest in pathology. And guess what? Even though pathology knocks on everyone's door, when you make empowered choices to divorce from it and release it in your life, only abundance comes. True abundance. Not superficial, not short-term, but deep, long-term abundance. So your task as an awakening human being is to look at your own narrative and brutally take charge for your pathology. How have you violated principles of ethics or morality or humanness or justice? And only you can answer that. I can't answer that for you. Your partner can't answer that for you. Only you can rise up to your own level of the highest ethics that you have. People who violate ethics, people who commit harm, people who violate boundaries are pathological. You need to understand that. And the more you engage with that pathology, now you are dimming your light. So you don't do that. You understand that their own causes and effects will handle their own existence. Your greatest power comes from manifesting your own light, from moving on your own path, from triumphing in your own glory. So that is how you dissociate from those who are toxic around you. This is not about forgiving toxic people. This is about liberating yourself from their existence. You don't have to forgive anybody. I always say forgiveness is an illusion. Because the minute you understand there's nothing to forgive because you have nothing to do with that person. Whatever pain they caused you is for you to metabolize. And the greatest, quote unquote, forgiveness is complete dissolution of that person in your psyche. They don't exist. You laugh. If they do exist, you have laughter. You look at them with tragedy and see them for the tragic nature of their low level of consciousness. And you either laugh or just have great awe at how sick some people are. You don't ever let it bother you. You keep shining. So people often say, well, I should forgive or they should forgive. No one needs to forgive you and you don't need to forgive anyone. Forgiveness is a concept that is bred from non-acceptance. When you accept, person pathological, that's it. You have nothing to do with it. Then there's no forgiveness. You release. Now, forgiveness comes when you wish to continue talking to that person. Okay, fine. But then if you're willing to keep talking to that person or keep engaging with that person, that has nothing to do with forgiveness. Now you've accepted. I like to think of it as acceptance and non-acceptance, period. Right? If I accept the person, there's nothing to forgive. If I allow them back, there's nothing to forgive. If I embrace them back, there's nothing to forgive. I don't hold grudges, I embrace you back, right? That's one philosophy. If you cannot forgive the person, you don't accept them. If you don't accept them, you don't forgive them. Finished. There's no two ways about it. This idea of forgiveness is just holding a grudge. You either have that person in your life because you can accept that transgression, you can accept that pathology, or you don't. It's very simple. Don't have someone back in your life half-assed. Don't have someone in your life that you have to choose to forgive. Nobody's asking you. Either you accept them and you allow them, or you don't accept them and you don't allow them. And finish. Holding them as a grudge in your heart is your own clinginess, is your own lack of being declarative. Yes or no? It's very simple. It's just there or not there. It's connected or not connected. This whole idea of forgiveness comes from our own resistance of accepting who it is they are. If you can't forgive, it's because you can't accept who they are in your life, and that's okay. Let it go. If you can forgive, that means you can accept, then they're in your life. Finish. There's no big deal about arriving at forgiveness. You either accept or you don't accept. You allow or you don't allow. End of story. People are like, I have to work on forgiveness or please forgive me. No, it either is or isn't. This is how it is with authenticity. You either feel connected or you don't. It's very simple. So this whole idea of, forgive me or I need to forgive comes from mental impurity, comes from mental stagnation, comes from mental immaturity. When you rise to wisdom, there's no such concept of forgiveness. I accept or I don't accept. I get it or I don't get it. I allow or I don't allow. So don't think you're some big grand savior if you forgive. And don't think you're some, tortured human being if you don't forgive. Reframe it to, do I allow and accept, or do I not allow and do not accept? End of story. It is or it isn't. But this kind of clarity can only come when you're very clear about yourself. When you understand which lane you drive in. When you understand who you are. When you don't understand who you are, you're all messy and confused, which a lot of people are. So that's okay, but you have to work on yourself. And this book is a pathway for all women especially to do the serious work, to do the hard work of true understanding of who it is you are. When you accept and understand who you are, then if you have caused harm, you know you've caused harm. If you have caused harm, then you work on repairing it, or you bullshit yourself that you haven't caused harm. Only two choices. If you haven't caused harm in your life and the other person projects harm on you and you truly haven't caused harm, then you know who you are. So all clarity comes from the lack of mental delusion about yourself. But many of us live in great mental delusion about who it is we are. And because we live in mental delusion, we think we are victims when we're not. And we live in victim consciousness. Now, there are true victims. People who have been physically abused, emotionally abused, financially abused are victims. Bernie Madoff, who did this big Ponzi scheme and scammed so many defenseless people of their life savings, was a financial criminal and a financial abuser. Those people are victims. People who have been either direct inheritors of the abuse of slavery or indirect are victims. Many people of color are victims right now. Indigenous people, LGBTQ++++, victims. There is such a thing as a victim. And our culture likes to victim blame. It allows us to absolve ourselves of I'm on a video. I need to just tell this person. It absolves ourselves of the shadow of the work that we have to do. So victim blaming is very common. However, many people who are not victims think themselves as victims. So again, it gets very confusing until you know who you are. So you have a lot of people, if you blame a white supremacist, they'll be like, I'm a victim of racism. White supremacists cannot be victims of racism. Racism by nature has an oppressor and a system of inequity for centuries. But white people sometimes will be like, I'm a victim of racism. Okay. So you're a victim of your own defenses, So again, it gets very confusing for people because a lot of people cannot look in the mirror. So again, you have to really understand where you have or are being a victim truly, and how to speak up for your rights, and how you may be in victim consciousness where you are clinging to the role of victim. So I explain this a lot in my book, and I help women to understand where they fall on the continuum. You could have been a victim 10 years ago, but still, I'm getting so many calls today. So when you are unaware of who you are, it all gets blurry. And that's why a book like this helps you to clarify your own causes and effects so that you can ground yourself in your own lane, in your own narrative, so you can understand who you are and ground yourself in that awareness so you don't get swayed by the pathology of other people. This takes tremendous commitment. This takes tremendous inner work and takes a lot of courage. But you can do this. It's difficult to look in the mirror and see your causes and effects. It's difficult to take responsibility for your pathology. It's difficult to say, you know what? I have caused harm. It's difficult to say, I have been the victim of harm. But clarifying yourself and integrating who it is you are with the help of a therapist or coach or somebody seasonal, not somebody who's enabling you, is the way to move forward. And let me tell you, when you begin to understand who you are, your entire life illuminates. Your entire life becomes incandescent with a radiance that is a reflection of your own inner wisdom. Wisdom shines. Wisdom is undeniable. Wisdom gets reflected on every surface of your life. Doesn't mean shitty things don't happen to you. Oh, they do. But you have the clarity of your inner diamond heart to thwart the pathology and transcend the negativity and arrive at a place of great creativity, great power, and great truth. Wisdom has the capacity to purge the crap in your life and take you to an elevated place. This wisdom is what no one on the outside can give you. It only can be cultivated by you, by doing the hard work. Wisdom is never borrowed. It is never wrapped in pretty paper. It is never made up, never injected with steroids. It is something that is cultivated, and it works from a deep inner organic place. It doesn't need an audience. Hey, see me? See me? It doesn't need to put itself out there. You can arrive at this wisdom, but you cannot arrive at it simply by wanting it, simply by listening to me, simply by thinking it and putting it on your vision board, or saying big fancy words. The true vision of wisdom can only be embodied through the inner work. Step by step, pebble by pebble, you can create the bricks and mortar of your truth. Most of us live our entire life in falsity. And because we live our life in falsity, we cause harm. Harm to ourselves and others. People die never knowing how they have caused harm because they are so unconscious. You need to not be one of those people. You need to wake up to your own inner torment, your own inner split off, unhealed, wounded parts today, so that you can stop causing harm. When we don't heal ourselves, we cause a lot of harm. We cause harm to ourselves, harm to our children, harm to people who come in our lives, harm to our earth. All of the earth is bleeding because of the wounds of human unkind. I can't call us humankind, sorry. Human crap, human psychosis. So, if you want to be a true renegade healer, stop talking too much. Stop posting videos. Stop going out there and talking about yourself. Go inward and do the hard work. Either you're teaching wisdom or you're being wisdom. You're not talking about yourself. Whenever somebody talks about themselves, that's not wisdom. That is me, look at me, do you see me? That's not wisdom. True teachers of wisdom and true students of wisdom either are talking wisdom or absorbing wisdom. So do that. When you enter wisdom, you touch upon the highest level of self-worth and self-love. When you do that, it's not just about you. It's about others as much as you. You tread very carefully because you are so conscious and you can do no harm. And you also don't allow people to do harm to you from within. They may take your book and take your shoe and throw a shoe. That doesn't matter. That doesn't touch the diamond inside. When you have true wisdom, no one can touch the diamond inside. In fact, the diamond becomes more radiant. That is wisdom. Okay, people, get the book. I will see you when I see you. Shine, 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 but only when you have polished all the scars, taken out all the blemishes. True radiance doesn't just happen. It's a work in progress. Go do the work, the real work, the inner work. Peace.